In today's video, we're going to show you how to install the basket drive in your Whirlpool built washer. So now to install your new basket drive, if you're installing the old one, then it's already good to go. As far as any springs or cam, you can inspect that cam to make sure it's not cracked or broken. If it's in good shape and you're just looking to reinstall that, then that's great. If you're putting in a new one, it's the same process, but in a new one, they give you some extra parts. They'll give you a new clutch band that you can change while you're at it. If you don't need to, you're not having any issue with your clutch, that's great. They also give you a bag of springs, and they're just different colored springs for different machines. The smaller compact version took one type of spring, and the smaller portable one took a different spring as well. So if your original basket drive had the yellow spring and you're putting a new one in, make sure you put the yellow spring in your basket drive before you install it. If it has a different color spring, then take the appropriate one from the bag, put it on your basket drive, and then everything will match up for your model. To put a basket drive in, it's really quite easy. You're going to want to put a little bit of lubricant on it because this shaft is going up inside a set of bearings, and when your machine is spinning, it's actually this shaft that's doing all the turning. So just a little bit of gear grease. And when it goes in, it's going to spread it right down the length of the shaft, so you don't need to do the whole entire thing. And it doesn't need a ton of grease, it just needs a little bit. And I'll also take a little bit, and there's a bearing down in here where your agitator shaft comes up through, and I'm going to just put a little bit in there just to make sure that's got some grease. Just gives it a little bit of lubricating for when it starts up. Now to install it, it's very easy. You just go to slide it up inside. So as well as there's a bearing down here, there's one at the top, and that just went into it. So you just bring that up into place, and then you're going to want to turn this cam a little bit so it makes those brakes start to release. In other words, they'll pull in. And once they pull in, then it'll start to slide up inside. And you can see how well that works. You just release that cam, and that releases your brakes. So it turns, and when you let go, then that's tight. Before I put my transmission shaft in, which will be our next step, so I'm just going to put a little bit of lubrication on that bearing as well. And that's how easy it is to install your basket drive. And now we're just going to put the transmission back in and put the machine back together. So before we put our transmission and motor assembly back into our washer, just going to want to take a little bit of grease and put it on this agitator shaft so that when you slide it in, it'll actually lubricate a bearing. And it doesn't hurt to put a little bit on the spline as well, so that when you put your agitator on, that little bit of grease will help keep any moisture from causing any corrosion in the future. Now to install it, it's very easy. Just going to take your assembly and put it in this position so that the motor is facing straight up towards you. Just raise it up. Introduce the agitator shaft into the basket drive. And you may have to wiggle it up and down a little bit to get it to move along. Just hold your pump up out of the way. And there, that slides up into place. Take our transmission bolt and just put it in hand tight just so it holds it, so that you can get your other ones in place. So your 3 transmission bolts, there's one here, there's another one here, and there's a third that's just up in here underneath your motor. Snug them up slightly, one at a time. And then I'm just going to turn my motor shaft so I know that everything is moving nice and smooth. So now I'll tighten those up so they're nice and tight. So now we'll just bring our harness up, slip it into that clip, just open it up, put your harness in, and just squeeze it together. Slide it onto your motor connector. Just put it on so that finger snaps down into place. So then you just want to set your pump in place. Now I've moved that motor shaft a whole bunch of times, so that may not line up. So if it doesn't, just rotate it as you need to. I typically will just set my pump on top, and then I'll just reach in here underneath where the coupler is and just rotate that motor till the pump drops on. With our pump in place, we just need to put our clips on, and they just go with this little T-shaped finger into that slot in the motor. Rotate it, and then snap it up into place. And it's the same thing on the top. Just drop it into the slot, rotate it, and snap it into place. So now I'm just going to give some support to the back of the machine, and I'm going to raise it up and set it on its feet. So now we're going to put our drive lug in place. Now our drive lug has 2 slots in it, and those 2 slots are going on top of these 2 fingers sticking up on the basket drive. So you just want to lower it in place, rotate it till you're lined up with those, and then push it all the way on. So with your drive lug, you may have to just tap it down onto place. So now we're ready to put our basket back in. Set it down on top of the lug. So with our tub in place, we're just going to put the lock nut on. And now we're just going to screw the nut down into place and tighten it up. And again, if you don't have the specialized wrench, you can use just a regular flat style wrench. Just want to be a little careful as you swing the hammer. I'm using a composite hammer, but you can use a ball peen. You just don't want to be coming back too far and possibly chipping your tub when you're whacking at it. So now we're just going to install our tub ring. So we just insert the recessed portion so it goes underneath the water distributor. Make sure all of these tabs are on the outside of the tub before you start clicking them into place. Some of them like to hide down inside and makes the job impossible. And once you're sure you have them all on the outside, just push downward to lock them. There. Now we just need to put the pieces of our agitator back in. And again, if your washer has one of these agitator assist components, you'll put it back in just by taking one pin, dropping it down into that hole in the drive lug, then put the retainer in place. And it doesn't matter whether it's on this side or this side. It'll align itself when it goes to operate. With that in place, you can put your agitator back in. So once that's secured, we'll put the cap back in. Press downward on it for it to lock into place. And then finally, your fabric softener dispenser. Snap that into place. So we want to make sure we install our pressure hose. So slide it down through the strain relief on the side of the tub. Line it up with the port and just push it straight down. Make sure it's well seated. And now we can put our cabinet on. So now to install your cabinet, you'll just want to take notice that on your frame, in all 4 corners, there's a little metal pin sticking up. One here, one in the very back, and the same thing on the other side. Now those pins are there to lock into your cabinet. So to put your cabinet on, we're just going to lift our lid, take hold of it, raise it up, and then you want to tip it towards yourself and just begin to settle the cabinet in against the front edge and tip it forward. By doing it that way, these ones automatically drop into place, and then you just make sure the back of your cabinet drops down into the ones in the back. Your cabinet in position, just bring your back into place. Take your clip, hook it into the back, pull forward, and snap it down into the cabinet. And your cabinet is locked on. Now all we need to do is connect our electrical harness for our lid switch. And now we're just going to flip our console forward, guiding in our curved hooks into the hole in the back corner, and snap it down into place. And there, parts installed, washers all back together.